This camera brings 4 major improvements that change everything. As soon as I got my Insta360 X5, I charged it up, I grabbed my extended selfie stick, and I headed out into the wilderness. I wanted to put this camera to the test and see if it's a great camera to bring along on hiking, biking, and other adventures. Now, to be fair to the X5 and pretty much any action camera or any camera, filming good footage in the forest is not the easiest task for any camera. In the forest, you have lower light because you have a canopy that creates shade. In addition, while hiking, there's movement involved, so you need a camera that has good stability. But you also need a camera that's not going to suffer from ghosting and jitter when you get into that lower lighting and it slows down the shutter speed. But not only did I take this camera on an adventure during the daytime, that adventure that started in the daytime carried over past sunset, past dusk, and into darkness. Anybody can test a camera in the city with good lighting at nighttime, but what about in a national forest wilderness area where there is no other lighting except my flashlight? That's right, after dark, in the woods with just a flashlight. Well, let's talk about the 4 major pain points that 360-degree cameras have traditionally had, and I'm going to tell you how the X5 addresses these and makes these no longer a pain point. So traditionally, footage from 360-degree cameras does not always look the best. And what I mean by that is the footage is often lacking detail and clarity, and that's largely because that 360-degree camera, it is taking that spherical shape, and then when you export it, you're taking just a small piece of that resolution. And usually by the time you're done exporting your final clip, the resolution is going to be much lower, and it's just not going to look good, especially on a 4K monitor or a 4K TV. But right away, while I was filming with the X5, I noticed something different about the X5 footage. I noticed that the footage looks really good, it has a lot of clarity, and it has a lot of detail, but it doesn't look overly sharp. In addition, I noticed there was a lot of detail in both the shadows and the highlights. In other words, the 8K footage on the X5 looks much better than the 8K footage on the X4. But why is that? Well, one big reason for this is the X5 has 144% larger sensors than the X4. That's right, 144%. That wasn't just an incremental upgrade with the sensor size, that was a giant leap. The X4 has 2 half-inch sensors, but the X5 has 2 much larger 1/1.28-inch sensors. The X5 is also using 11K super sampling, and this 11K super sampling is technically, the starting resolution is 11K, and it's super sampling that down to 8K. This, of course, further improves the visual quality. In addition, the X5 can capture up to 13.5 stops of dynamic range. Now, I have to admit, that claim surprised me, but after filming in the woods, I quickly noticed that there was a lot of detail up here in the highlights, but there was also a lot of detail down here in the shadows. In other words, the image wasn't sacrificing the shadows for the highlights, and the image wasn't sacrificing the highlights for the shadows. Both of them had lots of detail. So I will say that 13.5 stops of dynamic range, that does feel about right. But let's talk about what happened after the sunset and dusk set in. Once dusk was upon me, I switched the X5 to a mode called Pure Video, and then I continued capturing our adventure in the woods. Now, the scenes you were seeing here, they were filmed in 8K. The Pure Video mode on the X5 does allow for 8K filming now, which is great. And after switching it to Pure Video mode, I didn't change any other setting. I just let the X5 do its thing because I wanted to see how the footage would look. And I have to admit, I did have low expectations for the X5 in the dark in the woods. And the main reason for that is, unlike an urban area where you've got lots and lots of lights, from street lights, from city buildings, from cars, out in this remote wilderness area, there was nothing except my flashlight. I pretty much expected the X5 to bomb this test. I wasn't expecting to have any footage that I would consider usable. But after getting back and reviewing the footage, I'm actually shocked at how well the X5 did. The footage here actually makes it look more light than it actually was while we were in the woods. I'm just picturing the X5 sucking up any available light it can possibly find, pumping that through the sensors, and then cranking out a finished product that looks really good. So naturally, after viewing these clips, I wanted to figure out how the X5 did this well. And I wanted to figure out why the X5 didn't have any of that ghosting and jitter that you would typically see with any action camera that uses electronic image stabilization. Traditionally, action cameras struggle a lot in low light, and that's partly because of their smaller sensors and partly because of that EIS. Electronic image stabilization, because it needs sharp enough frames to work properly, Traditionally in lower light, you just can't get good results because the ISO has to be bumped so high that you get just a ton of noise and grain, and your image looks terrible. But after digging into this, I believe the X5 did well in low light for 3 reasons. First of all, the much larger sensors that are 144% bigger than the X4. I think that's one big factor. Obviously, a larger sensor allows more light into the camera, and that definitely helps. But I knew there had to be more than just a larger sensor. I've used cameras with larger sensors, including expensive Sony cameras like the one I'm talking to right here. And having a larger sensor does not always make that much of a difference, especially when you're in the woods and you don't really have much of a source of artificial lighting. So the second factor is faster, more powerful AI chips. So the X5 has more powerful image processing with a 5nm AI chip. In addition, the X5 has 2 Pro imaging chips. These chips are doing a lot with this footage, especially in low light. And then the third factor appears to be a new algorithm that helps improve the look of the footage both in the daytime and in low light. And something else I want to note that isn't just a pain point on 360 cameras, but is often a pain point on pretty much any camera, is the built-in microphone. While I was recording this adventure, I exclusively used the built-in microphone on the X5. I did not use any external mic. There were no other mics involved except the mic on this camera, because I wanted to see how good the audio is on the X5, especially now that the X5 has a built-in wind guard. No more wind guards that you have to place on the outside like with the X4. It's all handled inside the camera now. Here are a few untouched clips, including samples of audio that are straight from the X5. I've done nothing to modify the audio. It's straight out of the camera for you to hear how it sounds. This trail is definitely the path less taken, and those are my favorite kinds. In fact, I often like places where there is no trail, but you have to watch out for ticks, snakes, venomous snakes, a few other creatures, but generally the biggest ones to watch out for are venomous snakes because they blend in well with these leaves here. Oh, this would be a fun trail to ride mountain bikes on. Do you see this?
Yeah, yeah.
This trail has a lot of dips.
It would like jump a mountain.
It would. There would be some great jumps. And this is not the AT. The AT will be up here though. That's what we are working on connecting to. We have reached the AT, so AT goes north that way. This is the side trail, overgrown forest road we were on right here. And then the AT goes south this way. Now, personally, I think the audio sounds quite good, and I would consider it usable for a project. In other words, if you want to vlog with this camera or take it on a hiking adventure like I did, I would consider the audio usable without the need to bring along an external mic. All right, so the image quality and the audio quality are definitely better on the X5, including in low light. But what about another major pain point with 360 cameras? Yup, you guessed it, the lenses on the camera. These lenses stick out, and because of them sticking out, it's really easy to smack them on something or get them scratched. And scratched or broken lenses are unusable on a 360 camera. Once you get it scratched, and definitely once you break it, you're not going to be able to capture any usable footage. And this has especially been a concern for me over the years. When I bring along these cameras on hikes and do stuff in the outdoors, there's a lot of things these cameras can hit in the woods. There's trees, there's rocks, there's dirt, there's me falling, there's me stomping on the camera, there's my kids stomping on the camera. There's a lot of things that can happen. But the X5 totally changes the game when it comes to the lenses. Not only are the lenses on this camera more rugged than any other Insta360 X series camera, but these lenses are also replaceable. And they're not just replaceable by Insta360, you can replace the lenses on here. And the cost is only $29.99 for a lens replacement kit. And I highly recommend picking up one of these if you own the X5. It's just a great idea to have one of these along with you in case you smash your lens and you need to replace it out on your adventure. It's easy enough to do that. Now, fortunately, I haven't scratched or broken these lenses yet. And on my adventure, I did hit this into a few trees, a few branches. I wasn't being as careful as I normally am because I wasn't as worried about these. And I've looked at these closely and I don't see a single scratch or damage on these. And I've filmed with it since an adventure and the footage has looked great. So there are no scratches on the lenses currently. However, if I did need to replace one of these lenses, it's really easy to do with this kit. And I'm gonna run you through really quick how you do that so that you can see how to do that in case you ever need to do that on your X5. You'll find that everything you need is in this kit. And the first tool you need is this piece right here. And what this does is you'll take this right here, and that's going to grip around the lens here for you to remove it. This has a bunch of grooves on it that are going to fit with the grooves on this lens. And what you want to make sure of is you want to make sure this orange mark on here, that it lines up with a white mark on this lens. Now you may or may not be able to see it because it is somewhat hard to see there, but in this case it's right there at the bottom, and you're going to turn it counterclockwise a couple times. The ring is going to remain in here. And then you're gonna have a pry tool right here where you can gently pry up the edge of this lens. And it's gonna gently pry up like that right there. And then you're gonna have access right there. And then what you're gonna do next is you're gonna take the new lens with a suction cup. You're gonna pick it up by this, and you're going to pop it on right there. And then next, you're going to put this back on here, and you're going to twist clockwise to put the lens ring back on. And then once the lens ring is reattached, you're just going to pull off the suction cup. Now, I'm not going to put the brand new lens on. I'm going to save that for when I need it. So I'm going to put the stock lens back in since I don't have any scratches. And of course, if there is any dust or anything like that, you want to make sure there is none. You want to use this, which is included. This will blow any dust off that, because if you have any dust or debris on here, it's of course going to ruin your footage because you're going to have those spots on it. So you want to make sure it's dust free before you put this back on there. So another major improvement on the X5 is even more ways to easily edit and share your clips. And now you can edit and share your clips even faster than ever before. So one option is on the X5, there's a brand new mode called InstaFrame. And InstaFrame saves you time by recording a flat 1080p video in either 9:16 or 16:9 aspect ratio. But in addition, while it's recording that video, it's also recording the original 360-degree clip in up to 5.7K in the background. In the InstaFrame mode, you can tell the Insta360 to keep you in the frame, and it will track you no matter where you go. Or you can adjust the perspective composition to a framing of your liking. This includes front view, rear view, top view, bottom view, or a custom composition. In addition, you can tell the X5 to do an automatic 360-degree spin with your clip, or to do a 360-degree barrel roll. And it's going to do that automatically, and your clip's going to be there ready to share straight from your camera. The Insta360 mobile app has also been redesigned and now offers features such as time-saving previews, the best AI editing yet, and the ability to export without editing to create incredible content in just seconds. The Insta360 Studio desktop app has also been improved, and it offers an even better editing experience for pro creators. Of course, additionally, the Insta360 cloud service can be used with the X5 as well. Insta360 Plus is a convenient way to back up your files and to edit and share them in the cloud. I recently did a video on how to use the Insta360 Plus cloud service. If you're interested in learning more, you can check it out at the link above. So those are the 4 major pain points that the X5 solves. But what about those other important factors to consider with the camera? The first thing I'd like to note is the battery. The battery is bigger and does hold more charge in the X5 than it did in the X4. And what I noticed on this entire adventure is I only needed to use 1 battery. So I started off with that 1 battery charge to 100%, and I did nearly all of my filming in 8K. The only exception would be a couple photos and a couple clips where I did some slow motion scenes in 5.7K. But the rest of the footage was filmed in 8K. And of course, 8K is going to use the most battery power because that is the highest resolution, and the camera has to work the hardest when filming that. And in between filming my clips, I did keep the X5 powered on. I didn't power it off. I just kept it powered on, ready to go. So the fact I was able to film all of those clips on a single battery was quite surprising to me. I did have another battery along, and I expected I would have to use it. I was pleasantly surprised that I still had 5% left at the end of the adventure. And it's worth noting, when you do need to recharge your battery on the X5, it does support fast charging, and it'll recharge from 0 to 80% in 20 minutes. And another thing I looked out for was any signs of overheating on the X5. Now the X5 did get warm, especially when capturing footage in 8K, but it never felt particularly hot to the touch. I would describe it as warm to very warm, but not hot. I've definitely felt a hot camera before, but not at any point did I experience any overheating issues or any concerns that it was going to overheat and power off. It seems clear that Insta360 designed good heat dissipation on the X5 because I had zero overheating issues, and that includes when I was filming clips for several minutes at a time. And I have to say that's pretty impressive considering the X5 has those 3 chips in there that have 140% more computing power than the X4. So if you're in the market for a 360-degree camera, I definitely recommend checking out the X5. And if you own a prior version of the Insta360 X series like the X3 or the X4, if you're going to be filming in scenarios like low light, and if you want the very best quality footage, and if you don't have to worry about breaking your lenses and having to ship it back to Insta360 for a costly repair, then I definitely recommend checking out the X5. I do think those factors make it worth an upgrade. Now I will be releasing more videos with the X5, including videos that show you how to get the very best quality footage from this camera. So if you haven't already subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe and bell notification button so you'll be notified every time I publish a new video.